Hello again. Welcome everyone to this final track session of the Tools track at TestCon 2022, where it is my privilege to welcome Dawid Bastek, who is a test automation engineer from Poland and who has an interesting topic about how to improve your mobile project in one day, a guide that will be useful for everyone. And it centers around pull request practices, how to do that effectively and efficiently so that the whole process that we're working in will run smoother. Uh, a reminder to all that the publishers Pact and Manning will award nice ebooks for the most active participation. So please post your questions, rate the talk, and you'll have a chance of getting one of those. And with that, I happily offer the stage to Dawid.
Great. Hello, everyone, once again. My name is Dawid Bastek, and today I prepare for you a presentation, how to improve a mobile project in one day. I hope it will be a guide for everyone, as it was mentioned before. So, on beginning, briefly about me. I am mobile QA engineer since 2017 and mostly work with native technologies like Android and iOS, Kotlin Swift. Also, I am creator of Apka, Polish mobile testing meetup, and a really huge fan of basketball and ultimate frisbee. Below my social media, if you want to talk about anything or you will have any questions about my talk or something else like a ultimate, who knows, don't be afraid to message me on the LinkedIn. I will try to answer as fast as possible. Agenda for today, a big picture, why this presentation and what is behind the presentation. Then I will be talking about few tools which help me to improve my project, and I hope it will also help you for you. This presentation is prepared as a kind of checklist, so you can verify if you use these tools in your project. Maybe you are using something different, something else. I will be also happy to hear about that. Message me on the LinkedIn, and we can talk about it. So I think we can start it, right? Why this presentation? So a few months ago, I worked in the project where a client decided to create a whole new application for iOS and hired really good engineers, included me, and decided to build something new from the scratch. So everyone was excited to start a new project, to do something good, to bring his best practice and start coding. So we just jumped to the code, and after a few weeks, we faced few obstacles. So okay, I mentioned you that project was new, but the client had his Android application for around 7 years on the market, and he wanted to have the same application for iOS with the same feelings, user experience, with the same look. And if you are testers in the mobile industry, or at least so these two different operating systems like Android and iOS, you know that they are not the same, right? It's like they have different feelings, different designs, different guidelines, and it's not possible to have the same application for both. And the next thing was lack of documentation. Of course, we had something from Android, but it wasn't up to date. Also, the designs weren't prepared for iOS. There were some old ones for Android only. So we need to figure out we need to figure out by ourselves how to build that application, how to do that. There was no anyone who can help us from analytics side or from UX UI perspective. So we need to do by ourselves. Also, client decide to use unusual technology stack. What does that mean? Is that because they had Android application written in Kotlin, So they decide to use Kotlin multi-platform and bring the core of Android application and build on top of that native views for Android and for iOS. So using Kotlin and Swift. So you can just imagine how big mess it was and how a lot of layers we had inside the code and application. Also, the team was new. We never worked together before, so everyone had a different knowledge, experience, good practice, or maybe not. Also, we had our technical lead from Android. He was Android guy, so he had no clue how to work with iOS, and he tried to force his solutions from Android to iOS. So that wasn't easy. So we tried to find a solution to overcome these issues, these obstacles. So we introduced few tools which help us to bring the same understanding of the project. And these tools, I'll be talking to you about that, about this. There are tools which was introduced by myself with by a QA, if I should mention. So if I can do that, I think you can do also. So let's start. The first tool, I think everyone heard at least once about the README file, right? Especially if you are working with a repository with a code, you see the README file as a first documentation about your project and how to start the project, how to build the project, how to run UI tests, what's about in the project. This is the README file. And why README file is so important and a good README file is really important is first source of information, as I mentioned. If you get a new environment, if you are new in your job, and work with a code, or you need to prepare or set up your environment, working environment, probably you will read a README file. And probably you go through the README file step by step and doing the things from the README. And it's like, if it's okay and it's up to date, there will be no issues. You don't need to ask anyone. You don't need to going around to people and asking why it's not working. But if there is something missing, like in my case, there was a lot of things missing inside the README file. Also, the README file was missing in this project. That's the funny thing. But sometimes in other projects, I had a situation where I go through the README file, but something was on the red or not building or broken, and I was walking around people and asking a lot of questions. And then you just realize that you're using the newest version of some library, and in the project is a lower one or older one, and that's why it doesn't work. I think it's happening many times to the people. Of course, it's also a good README file is a calling card. That means if you are new in the automation and you want to show your skills, your new code, what you learned by yourself, probably you create a GitHub repository with some code inside and show this code to a recruiter to show a new job. Mostly recruiters are not the technical people, and they don't understand your code and don't understand the language which you are using. So it's really good to have a README file where there's information, what's about your project, how to run it, how to use it for non-technical people. And it also will help you with during a recruitment process. And the cherry on the top improves your writing skills, because having up-to-date, really clear and readable and mindable README file is also an art, and it's not easy. So this is an example how bad README file can look, and that's true. I saw it in this project which I mentioned you on the beginning. I saw it in some on-site projects when someone asked me about to do a code review or give a tip about his automation framework. And a good README file can look like that. I think if you are looking for some inspiration, most of open source projects have a good README files, and you can find there everything instead of what about, then precondition, how to install, how to run tests, how to run project, and nice to have the license. And yeah, good README file is very important. Also, another tool is the same. It's kind of the same because we are still around the documentation, around good descriptions. But this tool is a pull request template, which you can introduce to your project by adding simple configuration inside the GitHub or source GitHub or GitLab as you wish. And it's really simple. How it looks like. Keep your eyes on this slide because we will see this slide in the upcoming slides, and it will be changing during our presentation. So right here, as you can see, there is no description about a pull request. There is no reviewers. You can merge pull requests. There is no information, maybe about the naming convention. Maybe it's broken if you have a wrong name for your branch, and etc. So pull request template is here to help you to keep your colleagues and you on track with code review, for example, because it's really hard to understand what auto means when he's creating this PR where there's no description, right? So it's kind of documentation also for your future work when you just need to get back to check your changes from the past and etc. So this is an example how a good PR template can look like. So we have a bunch of questions there. It needs to help you to find thoughts on the beginning when you're creating your pull request description. Also, we can add some checklist or something like that. But it's a lot of questions. Also, we can start with something simple, like what does PR do? It's a simple question, but also give you some thoughts on start. So it shouldn't be that easy, that hard. Also, it's nice to have related tickets. And this is how it looks when we creating our pull request. Of course, this is only a description. You can remove it, right? So if your organization and your team is mature enough and looking for some consistency in a project in the way how they work, I think pull request template it's your tool. The third thing which I want to talk about, it's a dependency and packages manager. I think most of you, if you even don't know these names, probably you work with it on your daily basics, because dependency and packages manager, in simple words, is a tool which keep your environment consistent with your teammates. What does that mean? Simply is that if you have a configuration created once in your repository, it should be consistent for everyone, the same for everyone. This is why we need why dependency and package manager is helpful. And there are some examples: npm, yarn, gradle. Probably you heard about them, maybe Nugget, and they are really useful. They are not only for keeping your environment the same for everyone, but also they help you to keep your project safe. And there was a situation on the beginning of this year when a creator of npm libraries like Colors and Faker sabotaged their project. Colors is like 3 billion downloads, and Faker is like 300 million downloads. So it's quite a huge numbers, right? And so a lot of people are using this. I remember when I checked on in the middle of the year, it was like 20,000 living projects using these libraries. And the author decided to sabotage in the protest because they are open source, they are free, and the author didn't have any donation from these libraries, so he wants some money, so just corrupt the newest version. And imagine the situation when you came to work and see that your project is on red, it's not working, and you don't know why. And there's few reasons of that. One of them, probably you have a colleague, or maybe that's you, who just want to have the latest version of the library because there is a new emoji in the latest version, so you need it, right? It's very important to have it. And you just made your configuration to the latest, and all libraries will be the latest. And because we are working with CI/CD tools to be agile and to keep up with the changes, they are downloaded automatically. So our projects are in red. And you're just trying to debug your project to find the reason. Maybe if you are lucky, you lost a few hours to find the reason, what is missing, what is bad, what is wrong with your project. Or you may lost few days, and there is a lot of time when we are talking about creating the projects. And if you are working with the features, of course, it's like you're losing a lot of time. So the simplest way to avoid that kind of situation is not using the latest version. I mean, inside your configuration of your the packages manager or your project dependency, don't download the latest version. Just use the fixed version with some number and do it by yourself with a conscious and with understanding what is inside. That will help you to keep to avoid this kind of situation. What is the moral of this situation? The author lost his projects and get out from GitHub and get the bans, and probably they deleted his account. So don't mess with a GitHub and your customers. Okay, the next tool which I want to talk about is a linter. Linter is a tool for keeping your code clean by static analysis and looking for some issues inside the code and how it looks like in practice. This is an example of UI test from iOS written in Swift. And on the first look, there is probably no problems, no issues. Probably you didn't spot anything, probably. But when you run the linter, there's happening a lot because we made a configuration which showing us some warnings or errors when there is some extra white space or wrong name convention for files or something like returning null value from function or something else. It's really helpful, and we can add this inside our projects and forget about checking styling or something like this during our code review, because it can be done by the tool automatically, so you don't need to do that manually. And how it works in mobile world. So for Android, we have our Android Studio. We just run the settings, jump to the editor, inspections, and voila, we have all linters rules and warnings. We have a description. We can turn it off, turn it on as you wish. We can create a custom one if you want. But what about the iOS? Well, what I usually say is that you can agree with me or not, but Apple is not creating their products for developers. They are for users, right? But Apple don't make our life easy as developers. So as you can imagine, there is no linter inside the Xcode. And good for us, the community is here to help us, and they create the SwiftLint open source project who can help us with linting our project, looking for some changes. There's over 200 rules for iOS. You can contribute, you can create, you can modify, and do your own. That's really good and really helpful. Also, yeah, but this is our static analysis code. So it's during when we are working with our local project on our local machine. But there's another tool which with a combination with linter and danger gives you more handy and more powerful way to work. So danger is a tool for automation task around pull requests. So let's see how it looks like. So this is our slide from our previous one, but here we have our pull request template added, but still there is no reviewers. We can merge our pull requests, so there is no blockers for merge. Also, probably we are breaking the convention name for our branch. Will be nice to have linter info, warnings and errors inside the PR for faster feedback for our reviewers, and etc. So when we add danger to our project, we can have something like this. So we can configure very simply warnings, errors inside the project. And here you have information from our linter with warnings inside the code. It's checking only the files which we change it in our PR. So not a whole project like in the linter situation, only working locally. Also, we can add some extra errors, like here, for example, once in my project, I have a situation where my UI tests aren't inside the development process, and we need to run them manually on the CI on Jenkins, of course, but manually before or after the merge, and it doesn't happen automatically. So we add some extra warning inside our pull request. Every time when the pull request was created, there was the question, did you run your test on Jenkins, your UI test on Jenkins, right? Because it's not in your development process, your CI/CD, not right before you merge. So it's really helpful. The question was really helpful because before we introduced danger, there was not many times our developers running UI tests or thinking about that. Also, me as a QA, I also had a situation where I forget about running UI tests or running another tests. They only had a unit tests on the process when they're creating a pull request. And good news is that danger is not only for mobile. We can also use this for JavaScript, Python, and the most mature for Ruby. So it's really handy and helpful. I recommend to try this. And our last tool, it's branch protection rules. It's not something what you can get on the beginning of the project because it's something what you have inside your GitHub settings. And if you need this, if you want to play with it, you need to create your own project or ask someone to give you admin rights. So I don't think so if someone give you admin rights on your commercial product. But I really recommend to build or create your own repository, your own project on GitHub and play with it. So how it works, I will mostly focus on three first rules, but branch protection rules works like you are going to the settings, choosing the branches, creating a branch protection rule. You need to choose the name of the branch as a pattern. It can be main, developer, or as you can wish, you can be even a feature branch. Then we have three checks to use. I use it. I think they are most common to use and useful. So the first one is require pull request before merging. Yeah, it's nice to have a pull request, right, before you merge something. Sometimes in some projects, like it's an R&D project or something like that, there's nothing like that there. So it's nice to have that kind of rule. Also, you can add inside require approvals. So there will be no possibility to merge if there is no approval from your teammate. So you can start with one or maybe two, because it's mostly there is not enough developers to work. Two, it will be enough. The second one is to require status checks to pass before merging. That means if you have an integration in your repository with a CI/CD tool, for example, like a Bitrise, Jenkins maybe, there is some webhook which which send an information and communicate between your repository, GitHub, and your CI/CD tool, Bitrise, and give an information if your pipeline is green or red, is failing or not. And you can here require the status to check. And if it's red, you can block your merge until someone fix your project on CI/CD. And then if there is green, it can work. Also, you can check the option with keep your branch up to date with develop, so no one will merge changes which are not before merge develop into his branch, and to be keep up to date. And the third one, there's not here, but it was here, required conversation resolution before merging. It's a cherry on the top for me, but I really like it to have a resolved conversation during a code review, because at least I know that someone read it and maybe answer to my annotation. And when you finish with this, with all these tools, you can feel like this guy, and it's a really nice feeling to keep your project safe from you and also from your colleagues, because it's a human thing to do something, let's say, stupid, or to forget about something. And wrapping up, this is what we had on the beginning. What we have on the beginning, and as you can see, there's no tools, nothing here. We can just merge it. This is honestly, this PR, it looks like in my project which I mentioned you on the beginning, and I have a heart attack when I see something like this, almost. And after this is something like this, most important thing, the merge is blocked until the conversions will be resolved, until we get the approval. When our CI/CD tool is green, our tests running, and there is all resolved linter information on the top. Also, there's added pull request template, but there was no space for that on the screenshot. And key takeaways from me. So remember, sometimes it's good to do small steps instead of doing something big. Like here, we have a presentation about 6 tools, which can be added one by one. they are really easy to configure, and it don't take too much time, at least maybe one day, to add everything here. When you add everything, it maybe takes you one day, something like that. I did some by myself, everything. You don't need to do any big changes. Also, remember the automation is our ally, so leave repetitive and boring work for automation like a danger, linter, and some another tools which can help you with that, and do some think what you want to do or what you are interested, or do some proof of concept, to do some experimenting, to introduce to your team something new tools. If you are a tester, probably you have a space for that on the beginning of the sprint when developers are doing their stuff, and you don't have too much to test if it's a clear sprint, right? If not, you have probably a lot of to do. But you can experiment during on the beginning of the sprint. And also remember, this work is a human work. We are working in teams, so we need to trust each other. We need to discuss. We need to explain, and we need to trust each other. And thank you very much. That's basically all from me. And if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, David, for a talk with a lot of practical improvements that can be applied to projects. And I'm not sure how specifically mobile it was, because it sounds very generic. Many of these things apply
That's
to just about any project that uses pull requests, right?
that's true. But
Yeah.
I used tools related to the mobile, so I decided to narrow the subject and just only talk about the mobile. But that's true. Most of these tools you can use in every project, because we are talking
Yeah.
mostly about the good practice and the tools.
Yeah,
So yeah.
it's the practices that help. And if you have a different kind of project, well, you use a slightly different tool, and then you can have the value from the same kind of practice, just with a different tool.
That's true.
I have some questions. You had a whole list of things that can be useful, right? You mentioned several. So can you indicate which of those you think will be the most valuable, which have the biggest impact on the work of a team?
Let me think. The danger tool, I mean, danger as a tool, it's quite handy and really useful, but maybe it's not the top one. I would say the good README file, that's the simplest one, is the most important. And this is something what people always forget, but having a good README file is like you just have you save a lot of time for that, and you can just have the best project, but without a good README file, it's I don't know, it's really hard to work without that.
Especially for people that see things for the first time, right?
Exactly. That's the target.
Yeah. All right. Makes sense. And when you have a list of things that you could work on, such as you present in your talk, yeah, we could do this and this can improve and the blah, blah, blah. You have a whole list of these things.
Yeah.
You've mentioned what they are and what their impact can be. Could you also say something about how to schedule these things? Suppose you have a list of 10 things that you would like to change. How would you go about prioritizing and planning them for a team or for an organization? Any comments on that?
Well, I think you can introduce every of these two in parallel, so it's not a problem. I mean, maybe the last one, when you have the protection rule, when you need an extra access or admin or something like that, that can be a big impact on your current project because it touch everyone immediately when you add this change. But all of these tools can be done. There's no like you should do this first and now this and this. You can do this one by one in different configuration, different order, or as you wish.
Mhm.
So it's not a problem to add I don't know linter or danger. They're really related and really good in the combination. So it's hard to do one without another, but yeah, there's no problem to start with a danger and then add a README file or pull request template.
Mhm. There are
You
no
don't need to be
dependencies
specific
between
order.
them. Yeah. Yeah. And when you would introduce such issues and you decide that this is what we want to work on, would you then put this on the backlog of a team and make it an explicit part of the work of the team, or would you do it under the radar?
It depends, of course. It depends what we have in which organization we worked. So if you have a space for that and the organization is mature enough to do something like this, to do improvement or maintenance, sure, I will add this in the sprint and I will communicate about we have something like that, and if there is a space for improvements, of course. But frankly speaking, in most of the project there is no space for improvements, as you can agree or not. But in my experience, it's like new feature and another new feature. There's no space for okay guys, we need to stop and improve what we have. So the business wants new features. There's no value in maintaining something in the way of thinking, let's say.
Hmm.
So most of things I do by under the radar, and yeah. But as I mentioned at the end of the presentation, don't be afraid to do that, to experiment, because to do a proof of concept in your free time. I mean, during the work, right? But if you have a free time, like a few hours or something like that, there are not a big tools to do that. So I encourage people to do that instead of waiting until the ticket will be on the spotlight.
Yes, I imagine it can be challenging um, to have a product owner support the team, or even one person on the team saying, yeah, this is important, we want to try this, or we want to change this, and the product owner might not feel that way. uh, of course, within an agile process, the product owner is about the priorities of the business stories, the business
Yeah,
features, but not about all of the work, right? So
indeed.
have you also experimented with having the team saying, we want this because this is good for the team, and it's the team that pulls in stories into the sprint, and as a team we want to do this. Sorry, Mr. Product Owner, but we know this is important, but this is important too, and we choose to do this. Have you been in those situations?
Yeah. It's it's it happens sometimes. Sometimes
Hmm.
very rare, but happens. Yeah, and it's good. Then it's good when the team see the value of kind of tools or improvements. That's really good because in the group there is a power to uh, maybe not confront, but to argue or to discuss about something and maybe force the change. But most of the time, it's like the man on the top is a product manager or product owner, and he decides what he wants, and there is no space for discussion. And of course, this is the world, right? And there are a better organization and maybe not that good. I had both So I can say it depends always.
Yeah, that's how it goes. I'm sure many people will recognize this scenario from their own context.
Yeah.
I think there are no further questions. So thank you very much, David, for your contribution to the conference. Please, for the attendees, please rate the session. And then there's one last session in track number 1, which is about usability and usability testing. So you're welcome to join that one. For this track, this is the end. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
And
Thanks for having
have
me.
a nice conference.
Have a nice day. Yeah. Bye.